I always found it challenging, but I took that challenge as a challenge to overcome. You always have to work hard, whatever that means, and not give up. The fact that I had to always go back to step one, I wouldn't say it was great, but it was a risk that I was willing to take for the greater good. My name is B, or Beatrice Benedek. I think from the very start of when I started thinking about my future, I sort of knew that my place is not necessarily rooted in one place only. And I always dreamed about moving abroad. As to where, I wasn't really sure. As a little child, I had the fantasy that I would be moving to the US, but I think that is the influence that we all had in our generation, or my generation at least. But then as I grew slightly older and I got interested in history, especially the British history, I sort of said to myself at the age of 12 that I would love to live there at least for 6 months. And literally 10 years later, without having stepped foot on British soil, I arrived finally in Heathrow on the 7th of January. And even now, I can't really explain that feeling, but I arrived and I've set foot on British soil. I just felt that it's mine, that I arrived home. So I'm not quite sure how that happened, but it's a beautiful feeling. And then 10 years later, I still call Britain my home. I do a lot of things, basically, in theatre, in film, in the creative industries. And my creative path has taken me from Britain to Germany, to Hungary, to Austria, to Italy, to Romania. I'm planning my move back to Scotland this time, not England, but Scotland. There was never an urge to settle somewhere. And I think that's how I would like to carry on with my life, working abroad and traveling and experiencing cultures and understanding cultures through my work. At the start of this year, I decided to do Julia Cameron's The Artist's Way. One of the many tasks that she's asked in this book was to write some affirmations for yourself. And one of the things that I've written down for myself was that my entire life is and was and will be surrounded by creativity. And that affirmation came out of the reflection of my childhood, teenage years, and then my early young adult years. I just realized that everything that I've done in my life was surrounded sort of by creativity. I loved painting, I loved singing, I loved being in nature and picking flowers and arranging them beautifully and then gifting my grandmother or my mother with them. I loved all things around art. I loved needlework, and then I went into theatre and film. I just knew that it is something that I would like to pursue for the rest of my life. I am an artist and I will live off my art. I got to Austria, but I got to Austria in a position which in theory is a bit like stepping back 1-2 steps from your creative path, your creative trajectory, because I wasn't working as a director, so I wasn't staging things. I was working as an assistant director, and I was very aware of the fact that I'm taking a few steps back from my creative journey at that point, precisely because I wanted to get experience in another culture, in another system, specifically in another theatre system, because I knew that this is going to serve my purpose for future endeavours and projects that I have. Like, for example, at one point, I would like to lead my own theatre company or have and own my own theatre. And the best way to understand how to be a good leader or a good an artistic director or anything in that position is to understand how to communicate with the departments, how to be there with the departments, how to work with your colleagues, understand the dynamics, understand basically the backbone of a theatre. I can't see myself doing anything else. So yes, of course, there will be moments in my life where I completely doubt the decisions that I've taken with regards to my professional life. We find yourself sometimes in a situation where you just spiral in your own self-pity talk, basically. And that's, I think, normal. That's part of being an artist or being a creative. And the moment you accept the fact that this is a normal part of it, I personally felt a bit lighter because I knew that that's part of the package deal that comes with it. But I have worked a lot in the past 5 years, I would say, on my mindset and on my resilience building and on drawing borders and setting healthy borders. And you have to find yourself, your tools, your own personal tools to deal with those moments. It's actually quite nice that we're taking this interview now, because I'm just literally after having directed 2 shows in Graz, one right after the other. And prior to that, I had quite a lot of other projects across Europe. So literally from September till March, I've been working flat out in 5 countries, trying to stay creative and bring the best out of me and out of the people that I've worked with. And I am now in a moment where week after the premiere, I am flooded by the realization that I'm now free. And I am, in the nicest possible way, unemployed, but that it is a decision that I have taken for myself from the very start of these past 6 months. I said, I'm going to get myself through this, and then I'm going to take 3 months off. And I started feeling scared and feeling the fear of, oh my God, what are you doing? Are you crazy? But I also feel at the same time, and slightly stronger, the reassurance of my inner self saying that you'll be fine. It's fine. You're okay. There's nothing you have to fear. I would say I'm a bit like a sponge at this point, because whenever I am in a different country, I really am looking at how people work and live there, what the way of thinking is, what the mindsets are, what is important for those cultures. And then I decide whether or not those things are some things I would like to incorporate in my work or not. So going back to the example of Britain, I came across physical theatre there. And that's something that has such a big influence on my observation, I would say my creative observation, that I started integrating that sort of a thing in my own work. And now in Austria, for example, I love this joie de vivre, this literally enjoying life as it is. And most probably, I will, by the fact that I've been influenced by that so much, and I myself am trying to implement that in my own life now, that will most probably reflect into my future work. Tales of the Remaining came out of the ardent wish to expose a part of the history of Romania that has not been explored very widely. So I said to myself, well, maybe this is something that I could explore. And then this idea of putting something on stage that looks at the Jewish community might be something that I could look into. Tales of the Remaining is basically trying to find some of the Holocaust survivors with Romanian origins who are willing to tell their story. It was made clear to me that there are 2 different types of surviving, yeah? Surviving a Holocaust means, on one hand, surviving the atrocities of the extermination camps, but on the other hand is surviving a regime where you were lucky enough to escape, but you survived it nevertheless. And those people have their own wounds, own traumas they have to deal with or not deal with. Some people just don't. I'm just sad that so many stories have not been heard. The advice I would give my younger self, especially the one that has moved abroad, I would say trust in the timing and chill. You cannot control time. It's something that no one can. And the sooner you learn to understand, the better it's going to be for you. Because a bit like a good wine or champagne, you need time to mature into this. And you need life experience. Of course, if you're happy to put yourself out there for that sort of thing, not everyone does it, and that's fine. But I wasn't one to pass opportunities. I always grabbed those opportunities and put myself in situations where it might have been hard, like moving from one country to the other, moving away from support networks, moving away from friends. Things will come to you that needs to come to you. I think all you need to have is really an open heart and mind, and just trust in the unknown. Take each day as it comes and stay in the present. Enjoy the nightingale's song in the morning, enjoy the sunset, go out for a walk, grab a coffee with someone, and just don't worry about tomorrow because today is enough, and just enjoy life. No one's giving you that time back, and that's what I'm doing right now, darling. I'm living my life to the fullest. I think one thing that I would also like to share is that I wouldn't have been able to achieve everything that I've done without the help of amazing people in my life and the generosity that came from those people. It is definitely down to the Blunt family and the Howells family that have been with me and on this journey for the past more than 10 years now, whose generosity and love and friendship have been massive ingredients and factors in my achieving what I've achieved at this point. And it's something that I want to give back as well, like this generosity in one way or the other.